The prestigious MVNOs World Congress was held in Vienna, and that gave us the opportunity to sit down with two experts, Wilfrid Moser from A1 Austria and Gary Bhomer from TeleConsult, to discuss and reflect on the highlights and key takeaways from this year's event. On Digital Talk, we spotlight entrepreneurs, leaders, and innovators using digital tech and telecoms to drive global impact in a changing world. Uncovering the unexpected, spotlighting hidden gems, and sharing inspiring stories that shine a light on the most transformative corners of our industry.
Did you know?
Have you ever wondered how many MVNOs exist in the world? Stay tuned to the end of this episode for all to be revealed. So welcome everyone to Digital Talk. I've had the opportunity to be in Vienna the last few days and meet colleagues and friends. So we thought it'd be good and appropriate to do a wrap up of MVNOs World. And the MVNOs World has about 280 MVNOs and MNOs at the event. There are 550 experts, 40 exhibitors, 70 plus speakers, and more than 55 countries represented. So it truly is a global event. But I also realized that although most of the listeners will most likely have something to do with telecommunications, not everyone will maybe know what an MVNO is. The most important thing to know about an MVNO is they're providing mobile services, but they themselves will not own the radio spectrum or run the sites. And that will be done by the host MNO. Just to give you some idea of what size of market we're talking about 3% of the mobile market, as mentioned at the show by Omdia, can you consider MVNOs? However, that is also very different. Certain countries, it can be as much as 40%, I believe one of the countries is. But there are also a large number of countries that don't support MVNO models at all. So it is a bit dependent on where you are in the world, whether that's supported. Just to give you an idea and background, why they exist at all is that operators want to utilize the assets. The network exists. If they can load it with more data and more traffic, that's good for them. And the other thing is they can't necessarily service every market and maybe don't want to service every market. So that gives them a good opportunity. And maybe an important point to mention is it's also used by certain countries as a remedy to allow more competition in those markets as well. So multiple reasons for doing that. So without further ado, I'm excited to have two great guests here. Let's start off with Gary Bhomer, who is the founder of TeleConsult and had a long career at Telstra. So he has carrier experience and has since ventured on his own in his own consultancy and is doing some amazing things there as well, helping companies to grow. And also, I believe there's some governmental work. Is that right as well? What I see there. Welcome to the podcast, Gary.
Yeah, a bit of industry, government work. A long career at Vodafone too, Ian, I may add, in both Australia and Europe.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, great. Thanks for adding that. I said to you, you could correct me as I make the show. Anyway, welcome to the podcast, Gary.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And the other guest is Wilfrid Moser, who is International Product Manager at A1 Austria and mainly looking after, I think, Red Bull Mobile at the moment. He also has a long career in the MVNO area and working in wholesale. Welcome to the podcast, Wilfrid.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I think a good way of starting is to start with the keynotes, because that always sets the scene for the event. Let's start off with the first keynote, which I think, and this is also a tradition at this event, is we have Dario Talmesio from Omdia. He is a well-respected analyst, and he tends to always set the scene as well. So he gave a keynote. I'm going to invite Wilfrid to say a few words more about this, but having listened back to what Dario had to say, I'd kick off with saying that he started mentioning eSIM in 2017. So he was on the money then, and it's taken a while to get here, but that's where he ended up. So Wilfrid, do you want to just add a bit of context on what you felt, how Dario presented the situation in the market?
Sure. So Dario, as you said, as always, gave the overview on the general MVNO development. And he looked back a little bit in time at the beginning and showed us what the focus areas have been back then. So it started around 20 years ago with ethnic propositions. Discount was a big topic back then. Then we had development like digital first MVNOs, something 10 years ago, 15 years ago, arised IoT MVNOs. And now he stressed, beginning from 2017, when he mentioned it first, the advent of eSIM. And now eSIM is getting more and more the dominant topic, and brought with it especially travel eSIM propositions. So that's something what is driving the eSIM development these days. The interesting thing is what we also saw in the presentation of Daniel from ADL, that completely new players are entering the area. So back then we had the hosts, the MNOs on the one side and the MVNOs on the other side. The MVNOs typically have been telcos or from other areas. But now with the rise of eSIM and with the rise of travel eSIM, completely new players coming in, like hotel change, airlines, fintech, whatever. And that is really something disruptive for our industry, I would say. And also Dario mentioned that the only stable factor in our segment is disruption. New players are coming in, try to do something new and change the industry as whole, and bringing new invention to the market. Dario gave a super overview on the figures. Ian, you already mentioned some of that about the market size, how many players we have. The new things he also stressed are the fintech development. So with Revolut coming up, I think he mentioned Nubank, maybe at 26 has ambitions to do something. And the important thing about this is that these fintechs already have, firstly, existing customer base, and secondly, usually apps where they already have the customers on board, the potential customers on board. And that's something quite new because they are very close to the customer and it's all about customer experience. They are doing very well on that. So from the fintech side, new players are coming in. And he mentioned in the end two additional topics. Firstly, the satellite topic, the non-terrestrial network topic, which is, I would say, is not accurately a big topic, but will come in 3 to 5 years. So we saw first developments in the US with T-Mobile, with Apple, like that. So the first was the satellite topic, and the second he stressed was the topic API for mobile identity, where he saw a chance for MVNOs to participate. Usually, I always agree with Dario, and I'm very interested in what he's saying. I see this topic a little bit different. So the mobile identity topic, because it's complicated to have all players on board, and I don't know very much successful countries in this space. But to sum it up, Dario gave us an overview. Super interesting as always. The key development is eSIM, travel eSIM, what I understood. And yeah, super entrance presentation as always from Dario.
What did you pick up on that, Gary? Any
I think it's worth having a look at some of the background statistics as well. So, and as you said, Ian, every market is quite different. Like some markets don't have MVNOs at all, and they're just getting into MVNOs, like Nigeria and some other markets as well. But overall, globally, the market as a whole is around, MVNOs are around about 3% of the market as a whole. But in some countries, it's much bigger than that. So in Australia, for example, it's closer to 10%. I know in some European countries, it can be as high as 20, 30% even. But I thought that the key takeaway for me was that MVNOs are actually growing at twice the rate of traditional telcos. So that tells me actually there's in the markets where MVNOs do operate, there's a real opportunity to grab market share. But it's remembering that MVNOs are niche players, right? So they very much target particular niches, and they're more, I guess, able to target those niches as a result.
While listening to you both, I pick up on a point that Wilfrid was saying, and these new entrants, is it the maturity of the market as well, the eSIM, and also maybe the maturity of the MVNEs is also allowing these other market players to enter more easily, if you like. They can leverage it. If you think back, whatever it was 10, 15 years ago, it was actually always a heavy lift project to set up an MVNO, but you can become all sorts of MVNO nowadays, can't you? So maybe that's an also insight that actually to become an MVNO, the threshold is the barriers are not as high anymore. I don't know if it wasn't mentioned per se, but I think that's a takeaway, I think, which is back there. No, do you agree, Gary, or not?
Yeah. Successful MVNO markets typically have competition at the wholesale layer. So where the regulator's being forced to come in and allow MVNOs to enter the market, you'll still see the MNOs not quite being on board. So therefore they'll try and hold them back. They don't want them to be too successful, if you get what I mean. But where there is true competition at the wholesale layer, that's where MVNOs can thrive.
Yeah, go on, Wilfrid. Please add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, what I see is that we have now additional entrance doors, so to say. So traditionally, we had the host, the MNOs, and you had to make an agreement with them. What we see as a quite new development is that we have some kind of aggregators like Telna, One Global, and the like, and you also can start operation with them. What we've seen from different examples. So you have now aggregators who are also new players, and they give fintechs or whomever the possibility to entrance the market via these aggregators. So that this is a new part of the game, I would say, especially in the travel eSIM market. And I wanted to add one other thing. What we saw with Dario's presentation, the revenue are growing quite steadily. But what we see is that the number of SIM cards, of eSIMs, is growing much faster than that. Because so far, usually a MVNO SIM card was a first SIM card. You had it instead of your MNO SIM card. Now, especially with the travel eSIMs, that's what we saw in the presentation from Gilbert from Kaleido. On average, a user has around 3 travel eSIMs. So the number of eSIMs is rising much quicker than the revenue. So that's what we also see with our Red Bull project, but what can be seen generally. The number of eSIMs is rising much quicker than the revenue.
Fantastic. Well, that's a good, I think, summary of what Dario had to say, and thanks for adding to that. I'd maybe move on to the next topic. And I'd like to just thank the organisers, because they always try and come up with an uplifting keynote, and where telecoms are doing good, which of course fits in very nicely with Digitel Talk ethos and what we're trying to do by promoting good. So we had the presentation of Adrian Panozzo. Not sure if I've just killed his name there, but apologize if I have. From Better Life Mobile. And I believe this is an MVNO, which you're quite close to and have some knowledge of, Gary. Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Look, I really, really enjoyed Adrian's presentation. It was a very heartfelt and, meaningful presentation. So Adrian is the co-founder of an MVNO in Australia called Better Life Mobile. And Better Life, and what Adrian and his co-founder worked out was that, they were very much in the helping disadvantaged people, and particularly homeless people originally. So, they found there was lots of help with respect to finding, and not enough, but certainly, there was areas where, they were able to, help with food and accommodation and things, but they just didn't have connectivity. They couldn't afford connectivity. They didn't know where to go. They were really an underserved segment. And as services go more digital, like even to access benefits and so on, you need to do that through through a digital means. So, obviously they don't have a home broadband or a home internet connection. So the only way they can access those things and have contact with, friends or family or the outside world was through their mobile phone. So, and which they were not able to afford, or they, so Adrian and his partner set about trying to help them. So they, they worked through social workers. They're on the streets themselves, and they've actually built a very, and they're not driven by profit. They're really driven by helping this community and family violence sufferers, people with mental health issues. They're really out there servicing this segment. And I just thought it was he gave such a lovely insight into, this forgotten segment. Like the MNOs, they're too hard to serve. They don't pass credit checks. They're just, so having, again, it's an example of a niche MVNO doing something that's really good. Yeah, it really resonated with me, and he left everyone with the question, what can you do to help? Because I've obviously been in the industry 30 years, and there's a few other social enterprise MVNOs, if I can call them that, but I haven't seen anyone do it quite the same way. So, credit to Adrian and his partner Russell, and they've done a really fantastic job. And I think it really, for me, I don't know. I mean, you guys can comment too in terms of how you felt about it. But they're an MVNO on the Telstra network. They started up when I was sales director at Telstra Wholesale as well. So yeah, I've followed Adrian's journey over the years. Yeah.
Well done for taking them on board as well. Wilfrid, any comment on that? Do you anything like that in Austria? Do you have the need in Austria, or everything looked pretty sparkling in Austria? I must admit that I noticed some people mentioned me. Look how clean the streets are, and very, very uniform. So, but maybe I'm sure Austria. Every country has its challenges, right? So
yeah. So short answer, I think, as you said, I think we don't have this particular need. Yeah. So
okay. So from my side, I would extend the idea, because Adrian, beyond what he was mentioning about how he's approached it, I know in the UK, and I had a brief conversation with him after his presentation, and he said, social workers, right? So the people actually, the coalface dealing with these people, they're not tech savvy. Mobiles isn't their thing. So there is a need, and there are all sorts of communities like that. And the other thing is, of course, as he rightly pointed out, there are, you often need credit ratings to deal with the MNOs directly and all that sort of palaver he's dealing with. But reality-wise, hopefully every state or every country should be hypersensitive to this whole issue, because they're all driving digital engagement for everything, social service and whatever. But at the end of the game, they're not enabling it. So definitely, I, from the UK perspective, can see that, and I'm pretty sure, as I say, every country should be aware of that.
Sorry, Ian, if I could add one more thing, too, it's a dignity thing too, right? And having access and being able to participate in society. Is something, and it's not a nice to have these days. It really is a must have. So, all sections of society need to have access to connectivity, the digital literacy, and being able to be part of the the digital world that we all live in today.
So I think we can do a collective shout out to Adrian and his team, and I look forward to hopefully having them as guests on a separate podcast in the future. Just to add, I'm just going to add on the tail of this another topic, which is also around sustainability, but it's obviously sustainability is a different angle, but something I wanted to add. I enjoyed the presentation of Lisa Boyle from GIFGAF, and she was highlighting, of course, one of the challenges we have in the world of CO2 emissions, and how they have, first of all, been measuring from a marketing perspective. So not just from a cost perspective, but how do you do that? Her initial announcement was, do you realize that digital marketing gives or emits more CO2 or equivalent CO2 than the whole airline industry, right? That was our opening gambit. And then said, well, we as an operator, SDGs and all the rest of it, we also want to do our bit. So they've started measuring it, tried to measure emissions around their marketing campaigns and trying to do their bit. It was very interesting, entertaining, certainly worth touching base with her if you'd like. Moving on, let's go, given time. Wilfrid, I think you wanted to also talk about, is it travel and Kaleido? Do you want to just tell us what interesting topic that was for you?
I think that was a super interesting presentation from Gilbert and Nitis from Kaleido. They are very well known in this area for the studies they make. They have studies with around 5,000 travelers in 20 different countries and have very good insights in this segment, in this specific e-travel segment. And what one can say, what are the major developments? So we as Red Bull Mobile Data started before Corona with our travel project, especially for the Red Bull agents. And back then, nobody was interested in that. But then we saw some players coming like Eralo, Holafly, and the like. And now this is really the driver of the eSIM topic. As said before, around 50% of the international travelers use travel eSIMs, of course, outside of roam like at home areas, but it is around 15%, quite different in different markets. So China is leading there, and different penetration rates. And they presented some insights from the study. What is very interesting that the travel eSIM is going to the business segment. So different players are starting now with business propositions like Eralo, Sally, Holafly. I had also a personal discussion with Thomas from Dent Mobile. They are also going in this direction now. And then Gilbert presented some findings from his study. Some were obvious, some were very surprising for me. So what is very obvious is the moment of truth. When do the customers buy their travel eSIM? So that's usually upfront before the travel. It's very much like you book your hotel, you book your travel insurance, you book a car rental, and you book it upfront. So that's, of course, important for what we as travel industry providers are marketed. What I was astonished is that still airports play an important role in the spreading out or in the selling from eSIMs. Fortunately, I was on the airport in Vienna here to pick up my daughter yesterday night, and I had a brief look at the stand there. Where they sell the eSIM when you arrive at the airport, but that is going down very much. So usually it's sold upfront, it's sold before. The industry is growing more and more mature, and as I said before, some aggregators are arising here, like One Global, Telna, Geek Sky, who offer their products also to airlines, to hotels, to travel agencies, whatever. And that is the interesting thing, that more and more players are coming in from completely different industries. So in fact, almost everybody can offer this, and there is a good chance for companies who really know where you travel, like Booking or every travel agency or every airline knows where you will go and can offer you the right package for your given destination. So it's not the two-sided game we had before. There are more players coming in. Very interesting developments are going on there. Key question is, of course, what will happen if the MNOs, the traditional MVNOs, bring down their roaming prices. Can they kill the industry? Can they kill the travel roaming industry? We see developments in this direction. That's for me. I discussed it also with Dario and with Gilbert directly. It's unclear for me. Of course, that will have an important effect. And the very important point for me is we try to make silent roamers to persons who use our product. So currently you were in another country, you only use the WLAN. And what we assume on and what we bet on is that we can make silent roamers to paying customer and raise the revenue for everybody in this game. So if a customer was abroad, let's say in the US, and didn't use roaming at all, that should be changed. That he or she uses roaming, and then everybody can participate on that. So to sum it up, very interesting study from Kaleido presented by Nitis and Gilbert. Very good insights for us. And
Indeed. Yeah. And Gary, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, I had a similar conversation with the guys, actually. I asked the same question. At what point are MNOs going to respond? And because we saw the same with the MVNO market, obviously, where, MVNOs are initially, no frills brands or budget brands. And then now, obviously, the MNOs themselves they're either buying those, successful, budget brands, or they're starting their own budget brands to compete with the MVNOs once they became successful. So at some point, I suspect, you're right, Wilfrid, in that, the MNOs going to bring down their roaming rates, or are they going to provide their own eSIM proposition, which is effectively, I think, what you're doing, Wilfrid, in some respects, with Red Bull. But apparently, when I asked that question of Gilbert, Gilbert, as you nicely put, they're already doing it in Bharti Airtel. Is doing that as well already, apparently. So that's already starting to happen. So I think we're at that point where we'll start to see MNOs entering the market or providing eSIM as a travel roaming option.
Yeah. What I can add is that he also stressed that there is no brand loyalty in this segment. That was quite clear from his findings. No brand loyalty, in the average around 3 different eSIMs if people started to use it. And what I can add, I think we found out it's not about the price these days. It's very much about. I think we found some sweet spot, or the competitors found some sweet spot. It's not that important anymore if you take let's say €3 per gig or €4. People don't mind very much on that. It just has to work. The user experience is very important. But if I spend, let's say, 20 or 25 euro per holiday, that doesn't matter compared to the other costs. So I think we found a price point. I think it's somewhere between 2, 3, 4 euros, something like that per gig in most of the countries where you can offer that. But it's not about competing on the prices in this range. It's very much about the customer experience. It has to be work. It's about network coverage. And one additional thing they mentioned, a very important thing, is that with the usual physical SIM card, you can use voice and especially SMS. To get some SMS, you need it sometimes for some login things or something like that. So that's also an important argument to still have your existing physical SIM card, to use it silently mostly, but that was also an outcome of their study.
Can I just add one more thing? I know we probably want to move on from this particular topic, but what I think you mentioned it there, Wilfrid, and what everyone listening may not understand is that typically travel eSIMs are data only. So that you can get eSIMs, obviously, for me, for example, it's important that I have a local number while I'm here. It's like if, so I might not be able to use WhatsApp to call, the place where I'm staying, or a travel provider or something like that. So I like to have a local number as well. But the number of providers actually providing a local number, whether it's a UK number or an Austrian number, doesn't really matter to me, as long as I can make a traditional circuit switched call as opposed to a WhatsApp call or something like that.
No, but I think I can give a very clear answer to that. It's, I don't know a precise figure, but it's 99% is data only. There are some competitors who offer voice services, but then you have all the regulatory stuff, of course. And okay, maybe for you it's important, Gary, but for most of the customer, it's very much about the holiday. It's very much only about 2 or 3 weeks being there. So the topic is mainly about data only. Yeah.
On the comment about, just add to that, I did talk to one of the large MNOs at the event who doesn't have a travel proposition eSIM at the moment, but certainly seemed to be very interested in that topic. So let's see what happens there as well. So moving on then, Gary, you also had an interesting topic. Hopefully lots of listeners are football fans. It seems to be that's the direction we're going here. Do you want to just add to that? I think it was Real Madrid MVNOs.
Yeah. Look, so actually, I'll wrap it up in two, because I think, obviously, as we've talked about, MVNOs really need to have a differentiated proposition. If you don't have a reason for why someone is going to buy your service, then no one's going to buy your service, and you shouldn't be in market. So there's two examples or presentations at this event, which I think are worth mentioning. So one was Futbolerista, which is an MVNO being launched in partnership with Tata. And Futbolerista is actually it's an MVNO where the proposition is about being part of the Real Madrid community. So, in fact, you get exclusive content. You're branded at Real Madrid. It's for the these are football fans who are just nuts about their team. And Real Madrid being a global brand, is what people are really passionate about. They're very the people launching this feel very strongly about the proposition. And I guess the key insight for me was, in order to be successful, so mobile calling and data has become very much a commoditized service. We talked about that with eSIM, where people say, there's not a lot of loyalty. As long as I'm getting my data and I'm getting it at a good price and it works, I'm happy. So how do you stand out in that market? So what the founder was saying was, joining up that kind of high ARPU, average revenue per user product, being a mobile service, let's say it's €30 a month, for example, with a low ARPU product that has high attachment and high emotion attached to it, is actually a winning formula. So, when I say €30 a month for a mobile service, to be a Real Madrid member and to get access to all those services, it might be €30 a year. Yet there's a much stronger emotional connection to that, that being a part of that community. So that, joining those two things together, I think they've got to, people aren't going to want to leave because they want to continue to get that access. They feel very passionate. They feel very strongly about that service and being part of that community. Now, it's not being launched. Interestingly enough, I'm not sure if it is actually, but it probably is not so much, the target audience is not so much users in Spain. The first market they're going into is India. So, they had Real Madrid and Barcelona, I think, had a friendly match there. It was sold out. People are nuts. People are crazy about Real Madrid. So that is where they're going to be launching this proposition, and think about other countries as well. So being a global brand, they can really tap into that passion globally. So I thought that was a really good insight. But the idea of marrying up a low cost, high engagement service with a commodity service and joining those up, that was the key message I took out of that presentation.
Very nice, very interesting. And the Indian angle is particularly interesting as well.
Yeah.
Wilfrid, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I have some experience with a football MVNO as well. So that was the outcome of the MVNO World Congress, I think 2016 in Berlin. I'm not completely sure. And back then I met Hakan Demir from Fenacell. So Fenacell is quite successful in Turkey. Hakan is not at the congresses anymore. He has retired. But back then we started discussion, and the outcome was that we founded in Austria Fenacell as well, targeting very clearly the Fenerbahce fans here in Austria, very clear target group. We had some add-ons like in the MSIs. Then we had the founding year, like 1907. We had cheap calls to Turkey and stuff like that, but we failed and stopped this 2 years after that. The reason for failing was mainly the marketing and sales things, which did not happen in Austria. So we had a local partner here, and they never got speed. So we tried, we failed, we learned. What can I say? That's my experience with football MVNOs. I hope Footballerista will do better. And I also heard the presentation. It's very much about emotions there. That's something we also tried, but in this case, we failed.
Today's episode is sponsored by IFG Consulting Europe, who help operators to tap into technologies to accelerate digitization of the network, drive revenues, and reduce costs by championing promising software providers in telecoms, enterprise, and mobile markets. Go to ifgconsultingeurope.com to find out more.
Gary, did you say you also had another one? You 2 in 1, you'd said. I just want to come back to that.
I did. Again, trying to find a unique angle, right? So New York Mobile. So New York, I don't know if you guys saw their presentation, but New York Mobile, their proposition is all around what they called vanity numbers. Don't know about you guys, but if I went to the market in Australia talking about vanity numbers, I don't think I'd be successful. So let's call it like premium numbers, where you can actually go to them and they look. I don't know how they access their numbers in terms of, do they have a bank of numbers, or can they specifically pull these numbers from a provider that may already have them allocated. But we've had them, I guess, in most markets for many years. Golden numbers that that might have a sequence, or the same number repeated. And you see things like plumbers and electricians, or businesses that might have a number prefix with then their name, makes up the digit of numbers. But anyway, that's New York Mobile's proposition, and it's very strong. And you actually pay this off over 2 years, so there is some tie-in as well to actually needing to keep your service. So you could, we talked about being able to port your service to other providers, but there's still a requirement for you to pay for that number over that period of time. So they're actually finding that churn is quite low. I don't think it's not limited to New York, even though they're called New York Mobile, so it is available in other states as well. Although that's clearly their target market, and that's where they're advertising as well. But I just thought it was an interesting, something that we don't think is very, wouldn't immediately think of, is that's strong enough to have a mobile proposition around, as having a number that reflects your name, or something that you might say, hey, look at me, I've got this fantastic number. That can be enough to actually launch a successful MVNO. But I guess it points to the fact that you need to have something to be different to be successful, or something to talk about at least.
That's fantastic. And Wilfrid, what did you want to add to that?
Yeah, one player I'm very curious about is Fairplay. That was also from the Footballerista guys. That was their last slide. It's a global unlimited data roaming proposition. And they made it only as a teaser. They said, we will bring this to the market. It's global unlimited data roaming backed by data. So quite interesting. They didn't say very much about that. They have a demo in the App Store they showed, but that could be very, very interesting. So it's also made from Alois Wittmann in combination with data. I don't know very much about that, but very curious, yeah.
There's actually something else. We could talk about this all day, right? But there's a really interesting thing happening in the UK. Notice there's 2 providers there now who are offering access connectivity to all 4 MNOs there. So wherever you don't have coverage, you can actually then automatically access another network that may have coverage. Now that is a game changer, I think. And I suspect.
Do you have their names? I'd be
curious.
Yeah.
So Honest Mobile are doing it. So they're like actually a sustainable MVNO. You probably know them. And the other one, I thought I knew. I'm not going to give a name because I'm going to get it wrong. But there's another UK provider who that is their key differentiator. Now, I suspect they're doing it through roaming, so the rates are probably not fantastic. But if service quality, if you live in a remote area or a regional area where your coverage is very patchy, then that might be really appealing. You might want to pay a little bit more.
I discussed exactly this question, Honest Mobile, with Dario and asked him, what do you think about this? And he said, usually the MNOs have very much the same plans or ways how they set up their network. And he said that's very much the same. Obviously, every starts in the urban areas, and the network are very comparable in terms what they cover. And he said, Dario said, he doesn't see very much sense in that. He think that's very, very niche. But I think interesting topic, and I would be interested, Gary, if you can send this afterwards. I know Honest Mobile, but if you find out the other one, I would be quite interested in that. But Dario said very niche, very niche.
Yeah, not in Australia. It'll be massive. There is quite a substantial difference between the MNO's coverage. Less so now because Optus and Vodafone have done a regional sharing deal. But anyway, we're going off topic a bit.
But I'd also just on the Dario lives in a city, so he's okay.
Dario lives in London, yeah.
Yeah. If you talk to people in Wales or away from London, it's not obviously the same scale of Australia, but coverage is an issue.
Yeah,
but I think Germany has the same. Most countries have it. The only country that really seems to be excelling. China seems to be doing a great effort to create proper global coverage.
May I add one thing? The interesting thing with Honest Mobile is they have a normal product, so to say, and they have a backup product, a very cheap one. And that's quite interesting. So that means you have a normal, let's say, physical SIM card from EE or whomever, and you have a backup SIM card. I don't know the price point exactly, but it's very low, 3 or 4 euros. If you are outside, and then you have connectivity via the other card in the other two networks. So that's their proposition. That's quite interesting. And
Agreed. So actually, if they go down the eSIM route, right, they could have the people on the one plan for normal, and if they're around the country, even it could work. But moving on to another topic, you also wanted to tell us a little bit more about the work you're doing, I think, with Red Bull data.
Yeah. That's. I would love to tell about that. So what we do, starting this way, we as A1 Telekom Austria have a very close relationship with Red Bull. Red Bull, fortunately, is an Austrian company, worldwide known, I would say, and they are business customer of us. We sponsor their football team. They have some kind of brand licensing in Austria here. They have operations in Saudi Arabia, Oman, Poland. And before Corona, we had discussions with them and had the idea to start a travel roaming proposition. It was the worst timing you can have. It was just before Corona, the kickoff. And then, we didn't do very much the next 2 years. People in my company said, how can you handle roaming topics these days? No, but the initial point was that we made a product for Red Bull athletes. They sponsor a lot of athletes and they travel globally. And we made a specific product for around 200 athletes. They were more or less our test customers, used it globally. And then around 3 years ago, we started to market it. And to be honest, the USP is really the brand Red Bull. We had a product 10 years ago that was called, or 14 years ago, a broadband. And back then we sent it out the sticks, the SIM cards, and had to build up a brand, and that failed. And these days we don't have any logistics, and we have a super brand. So we don't have to invest in building up this brand. And what they do is they bring in their brand and they make the app, and we do the rest. We have all the roaming agreements. We have a reseller platform where we do this on. And we market this it's more or less a normal travel proposition. We sell it per gig. We are active in 106 countries. You can use it. You can download it worldwide, of course. And we market it in 3 different ways. We make search engine optimization. That's obvious. We build a lot of landing pages. The others do the same and even more. Then we make online marketing. And there we had a interesting learning. I made a specific campaign. It's always in this area, it's always about corridors. So you address a corridor like European Union to Australia or USA to Brazil or whatever. You focus, if you're bigger than we are, like a Rado Holofly, they focus on everything, I would say. We focus very much on corridors and try to find out what can we address. And I made a campaign, I think, for 3 years ago, I made a campaign, worked super. I invested money, it paid back super. And I thought, oh, that's fine. I will make the same campaign every year, of course. It was a campaign in March due to the travel season. I made exactly the same campaign 1 year later on, and it didn't work at all. A click costed me 5 times more. There you can see how many players came to this travel industry. It was really too expensive. This one didn't pay off. So we are very careful with the online marketing measure, with other than SEO measures right now. So that was pillar 2. And pillar 3 is partnerships. That means travel agencies, hotels, and the like. And there, Red Bull is really a door opener. That's really fine if you come there and say, we are Red Bull Mobile. That's really a door opener, a known brand, and yeah, super. The specific thing, and that's what I want to mention, is we have now a new model. Usually you buy roaming for, don't know, let's say €1 per gig, whatever, and you resell it on a given rate, let's say €2. That's how it usually works. And I think we and Red Bull is always very much about it has to be new. It has to be something different, not what the others are doing. Yeah, it has to be bullish. It has to be bullish. Yeah, don't do the same what the others are doing. It's boring. And it was a little bit random. I was on a cruise ship for the first time in my life in the Mediterranean near Geneva, and I told my family, please switch off data roaming. And my wife forgot to do so. I got a bill shock when we went back home. The €60. We also had €60 for Monaco, where we were afterwards, also not switched off. And there I got a bill from A1 for the cruise ship, which is operated by Telenor Maritime. And then I contacted Telenor Maritime, and I said, we have to do something about that. What you quote us is too expensive. I can't make a product out of that. That would be too expensive. My suggestion is you make a 0 rating. You don't quote us anything, and we make a common product for retail. And that's how it really worked. So they make 0 rating. We as A1 don't pay anything. We made a common product that's 1 gig for €15, working on around 300 cruise ships and ferries worldwide. Works pretty well. And the good thing is on these ships is very less competition. You have there the WLAN from the ship, and you have us more or less. So that's really driving my revenues, to be honest. Very less competition there. Super partnership with Telenor. And now we try to copy this model. So we changed it from a wholesale model to a retail model. We don't have wholesale fees anymore. We have a common retail revenue, which we share. Fine for everybody. And we try now to copy this with other MNOs. You have some it's not about Australia, US, that are very normal markets, so to say, but you have markets which work a little bit different. And there we try, and we are in negotiations right now, to change it also from a wholesale to a retail model. So I think that's something quite new. The Telenor Maritime proposition is working super. And we try to copy this for specific markets. So yeah, that's really new, I would say, and that's what Red Bull likes, to have new things and other things and differentiate. Yeah.
So does that mean I go on one of these cruise ships, I will see Red Bull as a provider? Is that do I understand you correctly?
You download our app. You download our normal Red Bull mobile data app, and you have the other countries like Australia, Germany, and so on. And that's like a country, and it doesn't work in the harbor. The cruise has to leave the harbor. It's about 10 sea miles. And out on the sea, it works globally because they are backed up by satellite. if you're somewhere on the Atlantic Ocean, it works. You could use the VLAN from, let's say, P&O Cruises, or use our product. You make it via app.
Got you. Fantastic. Well, I think that's good advertising for you. So I think we can leave it there for now. Unless, Gary, you have any particular comments on the back of that, other than you might be using on your next cruise.
No, just interested. So Telenor, does Telenor provide the satellite connectivity on the ship? That's part of it?
Yeah, Telenor has set up all this. So Telenor is cooperating with AIDA, Costa, P&O, with a lot of large cruise ships, and with ferries in the North and East Sea. That was all set up. So that's working. If you would buy that, you also could use your Telstra SIM card, of course. I think you will also have a contract or a former company. It works, but it's extremely costly. I won't mention what we as A1 take or Deutsche Telekom takes. That for 1 gig, it's extremely costly. Nobody uses it. It's prohibitive.
I am involved with the small states and Monaco as well, and I can tell you that they were told on one of the conferences with the bill shock. Some ship, private cruiser, was it was in the hundreds of thousands. I think that someone got bill shock. So anyway, I presume we need to go. Anyway, that's I think we're off topic. Time is running low, but I just want to set you to think: was there anything missing? But let me just tee up another topic while you think about that. But it fits in nicely, actually, what you both were saying. One of the topics is, as I say, what's been missing. I didn't see AI being overly hyped at the event, even though I think it's generally available.
Except for in the pre-workshop. I was there on the Monday. I know the official conference is Tuesday, Wednesday, but day one was all about AI, and there was a lot of conversation. I agree with you in the main conference piece. It was people would sort of almost avoid talking about it because it's become such a overused term, and sort of in their presentations of AI. But no, the first day there was some specific workshops and it was AI native workshop. So I think it was covered in the pre-conference agenda during day zero, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, worth mentioning on that the event is 3 days generally. There's a pre-day conference, often a bit of training and learnings and things like that. So it brings in the actual potential new MVNOs because lots of people don't know about it. And then you have 2 days of conference. That's what we're talking about. I wanted to bring up while you're thinking about it as well, is that I had a very interesting guy called Kamil from Poland, Mobile Vikings. And he was saying, because of course, you mentioned, I think also, Wilfrid, SEO. And there's a guy on stage also saying that I don't use search engines anymore, only use AI to do searching. And this guy from who's actually the data analyst at Mobile Vikings says they've found that the LLMs are not the same for if you're using search engines versus generative AI. The actual sources are quite different. And so they are now trying to enrich or train the LLMs to actually promote them better, if you like, or influence those. I thought that was quite interesting. I think it's a new industry. I created a new acronym. I thought it was new, LLMO, so optimization. But I've also heard it's called generative engine optimization. But I think it's a new area of interest, which for marketing purposes will be important.
What I can report here, we are doing SEO, and we see very clearly since around half a year or a year that AI is taking traffic. So our figures were climbing quite nice, the click, the impressions, and now it's going down because, for example, when you search in Google, you also have the AI result at the very bottom in the meantime. To be honest, we have not reacted to that so far, but I think that's something we can take as a task. Yeah. So SEO is not working that well as it did always.
You'll see. Anyway, there's a post on LinkedIn about that. Any
Can I
other
just add,
particular things? Yeah, please go.
Yes.
Please
You're
go
going to ask
Sorry,
the question.
No, I was
we
just
mentioned
saying
AI.
anything missing. Yeah.
Missing. So we mentioned AI, and I think it is a massive opportunity for MVNOs. So I mean, it's and here I'm not talking necessarily about optimizing your contact center service. That's key because you can save money there and provide a better customer experience. That's using generative AI and those kinds of technology and tools. But there's also a in the decision intelligence domain as well, where, you can really, how do you optimize your acquisition? Where are your good customers coming from? How do you optimize your marketing channels? There was an award for that. I'll talk about that a bit later. We'll mention it. And then there's also in life, how do you, optimize yield and ARPU and AMPU, as well as, try to, manage churn. Like if you can start to identify when customers are thinking about leaving, can you address that issue with them before they actually leave? So there is a role there now, and there are platforms and capabilities emerging whereby the MVNOs can get access to that, because all the MNOs are doing it. They have their big data science teams, but so therefore look to partner with providers who can help with that. So that's one thing I wanted to add.
So, on full disclosure, I believe you're working with Source AI, is it?
I am working with Source AI. Thank you for the plug. So yes, and they're a provider who can do that. And actually, we're one of the they were a recipient last year, and they were a co-recipient this year. Yeah.
Perfect. We'll come to that in a minute. Have you got anything missed from the event, or are you missing from the event, Wilfrid?
No, nothing particular. It was very convenient for me. This was the first event where I could go with the tube, with the underground.
So you had one of the low CO2 footprints out there, I guess,
yeah.
Among others. Yeah. And Gary, for you, anything particularly missing? You mentioned IoT, I think you wanted to.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of talk about IoT, but I think that's an entirely different topic, Ian. So, if I go into that, then we'll be here for another half an hour at least. So, but IoT, eSIM, MVNOs. The one thing I just want to mention about eSIM, we talked a lot about eSIM in the travel, in the travel industry, roaming replacement. The eSIM will also become very mainstream for just general mobile connectivity. In the US, for example, iPhone has been eSIM only for a number of years now. That is likely to happen here as well. So whether we like it or not, the whole industry will move from physical SIM to eSIM, progressively. It might even be next year or later this year that Apple launches eSIM-only iPhones in Europe. So, that's just something that I think we all need to be ready for.
Yeah, devices, a device drive, of course, ability to do things, which is actually one of the reasons why 5G didn't take off, because devices weren't capable and the rest of it. And so let me move on, jumping a bit forward, but the winners of the awards maybe, do you want me to just briefly mention them? And then I'll go through them as a whole. And then if you guys have any particular ones you want to pick up on. So if we move to the winners of the different awards, the categories were AI and Analytics Excellence Award. Optiva won that one. Best MVNO Tech Enabler Lifecycle Software. MVNE of the Year Plinthron. Best Cloud Integration Partner Telnest Tech. Outstanding IoT Connectivity Solution Provider One OT. So it's IoT, a play on IoT. eSIM Trailblazer of the Year Telna, which was mentioned, of course, we mentioned here in the podcast. AI Native Lead of the Year, More and Tangerine Telcom. I think I saw a presentation of them. eSIM Provider of the Year, Emnify. Leading Consumer MVNO Sub-brand, Superdrug Mobile. IoT Enterprise MVNO of the Year, Flow Live. Rising Star Award, 8 Telecom. Host Operator Excellence Award, Orange Wholesale. Sustainability Campaign GIFGAF Certified B Corp. Best MVNO and Industry Collaboration, More and Tangerine Telecom. And the last but not least, Customer Impact Award, Superdrug Mobile. So maybe just have a comment on one or the other. And of course, we want to celebrate and give them a congratulations on winning. Yeah, come on. Woo, woo, woo. Let's go for it. But, these are the people that make the difference. And I apologize for anyone listening, all those acronyms thrown in there. This industry is so full of acronyms, it's ridiculous. But so that was great. So finally, I'd like to just come to the point of...
Can I just, Ian?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you mind if I just jump in there for a second? I have the benefit of being a judge of these awards as well, so I get to see all the entries.
True, please.
But just a quick couple ones, just to add a bit more flavour to a couple of these. So AI Native Leader of the Year was the one I referenced before with Tangerine Telecom, with their collaboration with Source AI, where they're using marketing mix modelling and actually really finding out where they can optimally spend their money, and actually getting some fantastic results where They can, either spend less and get the same number of connections, or spend the same amount and get more connections by optimally allocating their marketing budget. And that's something that's really working very well. 8 Telecom Rising Star Awards, and they're in Singapore. And Singapore, the thing that blew me away about this presentation and what they're doing, they've been in the market for 12 months, and they have grown. Can't give you any numbers, but they have grown very, very successfully. But it is such a competitive market that the pricing in Singapore is really, really low. But they have to stand out. It was a very engaging offer as well. And the last one, the best MVNO and industry collaboration, that's again more in Tangerine, so more telecom, more specifically, where they're partnering with the largest bank in Australia, the Commonwealth Bank, who actually together they're going to market and providing benefits through the CVA app, referencing their collaboration with a telco. So one thing we didn't talk about, and that Dario talked about a lot, was non-industry brands entering the mobile market and leveraging the telco brand to generate loyalty and retention, as well as potentially some additional revenues along the way.
That sounds quite very interesting. Thank you for your first thoughts, your judging, and the contribution to that as well. Any final thoughts, or what's your takeaway? If you had to, in one sentence, say about the event, what's your takeaways? Have you got one, Wilfrid? Have you got a particular takeaway?
For me, the key takeaway is that we really, with our travel eSIM proposition, are on the right way. That we started quite early with that, and have chosen the right thing, I would say.
Okay, fantastic, Gary.
Oh, look, the only thing I'd add is that it is really refreshing to come to this event. I tend to come most years, and just to see the diversity of people that attend this event, across boundaries, and just seeing the level of creative thinking. I mean, this industry really has to reinvent itself again and again, and so it's really good to come along and see what is actually happening in other parts of the world and what's helping make them successful. So that's where I get a real kick out of attending this event. So yeah,
it would be super if the World Congress would be one day in Australia. I would appreciate that very
no
much.
one would come, Wilfrid. Everyone's just going, what do you mean? You
I will come for sure. For sure.
You must be nuts.
Well, he has to test the proposition in Australia. I think that's on the cruise out Australia. I think that's Wilfrid's tying up both the cruise and Australia.
Yeah. Travel eSIM, I'm here, down there.
But just as what you say, Gary, I totally agree. I go to the event exactly for the reason of you'd like to think this is bleeding edge, leading a differentiation. And we know MNOs are not as agile as MVNOs. And there's also the cocktail of entrepreneurship, people with new ideas and being able to leverage telco. So that's what I learned from it. So I'd also think we should give a shout out to the organizers. So that's Informatech, Chris and Justine. Let's give them a shout out. I like to give a shout out and give, positive vibes as well. So gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure to have you on Digital Talk, and you're now part of Digital Talk community. So hopefully maybe have you on future episodes. And if you know of anyone else worthy and with good stories, telling them about leadership, innovation, and things like, tech for good and telco for good, they're more than welcome to our podcast. So thank you again at short notice for making your time, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I hope that was interesting for all the listeners out there, and that they learned something new. Thanks, Ian.
Did you know?
As of the end of 2022, there were 1,986 active mobile virtual network operators, otherwise known as MVNOs, worldwide, which is more than double the number of traditional telecom network operators globally. This figure is widely cited by sources and reflects the most recent comprehensive data available. Regional distribution by geography and continent. Europe leads with a global total of 1,012 active MVNOs, accounting for about half the world's total. The Americas, 379 MVNOs, about 19% of the global total. Asia, 322 MVNOs, 16% of the world's total. International, 131 MVNOs. Oceania, 84 MVNOs. Africa, 54 MVNOs. And the Middle East, 5 MVNOs. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to rate us and subscribe, and feel free to follow us on LinkedIn. And if you have comments or ideas for future episodes, please send us an email. Thanks for being part of the Digitel Talk community and for listening. Stay tuned.